For my project for 602, I decided to research the services offered for ELs in Greeley-Evans District 6, where I currently work, and more specifically at Franklin Middle School, which is the middle school I currently work at. So for my project, I decided that I was going to base it off of Nieto's demographic portrait idea. And in her portrait, she suggests that you find out how many ELs and how many different demographics you have at your school and calculate that, and then see what services are available, and then answer a couple questions based on those services. So I narrowed mine down to a couple key questions that I based my project on. Basically, are there services available for my EL students at Franklin Middle School that I'm unaware of? I figured that this question was very important because I know that there's services that I'm unaware of, and it's hard for me to advocate for my students if I don't know of the services. Another question was, what services are available within District 6 community? This is a district in which Franklin resides in, and I know if there's services available in the district, then I can advocate for my school to perhaps get those services if my school does not offer them, or even suggest for a student to be transferred to a different school that does offer a service that is more appropriate for their needs. So if so, what are those services, and could more services be offered? I also focused on what's offered in the community because not only do the kids need services while they're in school, but their families also need services that are in the community as well. So for this project, I really focused on two quotes from Nieto's text, Language, Culture, and Teaching. The first one is, because of limited experiences in teaching, teachers know very little about the students they teach, and students need to know that there will be adults in their school and communities who understand and support them. So basically what that means in the first quote is that because a lot of teachers who teach in high-risk schools are first-year teachers, or within their first few years, they don't have as much experience with teaching, and therefore they don't have as much schooling as well. Since they just graduated, they haven't been starting master's programs and such. They don't know about all the services that are available and what exactly their English language students need. So that causes a very big rift, because we need to be able to properly advocate for our students and get them what they need. Just like Nieto says, the students need to know that there's an adult in their school and community who understands them, knows where they're coming from, and then can support them by offering them services that are available. So when I entered District 6, we got a week-long course before we entered the schools. 2 of those days were spent on how do we teach English language learners. We not once went over any of the services available for them, solely about how can we scaffold and create visuals in our classroom in order for them to be successful. I saw this as very problematic, because how am I supposed to advocate for my students when I don't even know about the services offered? How am I supposed to help my students' parents when I don't know about what our community offers? And therefore, I thought it was extremely important for me to figure out what those services are in my school, in my district, and in the community, so that I can be that proper support that my students and my students' families need. So then this brings me to the process of my project. I knew that in order to find out about these services, I obviously had to talk to people in the district, in the community, and in my school in order to find out what all of these services are. Now, collaboration is extremely important. If we look at Advocating for English Learners by Fenner, she specifically states that to support EL success in their schools, collaboration is necessary. It allows teachers to brainstorm an action plan collaboratively, which means an action plan in order to help EL students, a plan on how we can properly advocate and what we could do in the classroom to help them, and encourages collaboration among all the stakeholders in the EL's education. So collaboration just basically gets us to work together so we're all on the same page and all being consistent with our EL students. So in order to complete this project, I needed to talk to the CLD teachers at my school. There's 3 of them total, and I was able to talk to each of them. Each of them knew about the same services, but one specifically has been here in the district for a very long time. So she knew about nearly all the services available within the district because she has worked at multiple schools in the district. I also talked to the youth migrant advocate at my school and also the youth migrant advocate in the district. There's a couple of them who was very helpful and could provide me a lot of information on migrants, EL students. I also talked to Human Resources Department for Greeley District 6, and they were the ones who gave the huge presentation on how to scaffold in the classroom and how to make proper visuals and whatnot for my students. So I further talked to them on what services are available at the district level specifically. So after reviewing what I'm inquiring on, the background to this inquiry, and the process in which I found my findings, I am now going to present my findings to you in numerous ways in the next few slides. So for my first step, I found the demographics at Franklin Middle School. At Franklin Middle School, it is 79% Hispanic, 18% white, and 1% other. There are a total of 25 migrant students across the 3 grades. There's a total of 2 refugee students and approximately 110 students that receive CLD services. In Greeley, there are 57% Hispanic students, 38% white students, 1% Asian, 2% Black, and then 2% other. So to start off with, I think it's important to talk about what we do learn before we enter the classroom as teachers. So before I entered the classroom, there was, as I said before, about 2 days worth of ELL information. So we were first of all, we were made aware of the fact that there are pull-out language classes available for CLD students. So there are oral language classes for CLD students, and then there's also language arts classes for CLD students that are not mainstreamed whatsoever. The kids in oral language are mainstream language arts, and then they also have oral language in addition. And then there's also a creative writing class for EL students to help them with their English writing. And those kids also have a mainstream language arts class. Then the severe kids, the NEPs, have complete pull-out language arts classes, and they're not mainstreamed whatsoever. Also, we were taught the Wicker strategies, which you could see is pictured on the right. So the W stands for writing, then inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. And this is supposed to help them with their language skills. And we are to have a Wicker poster hanging in our classroom at all times to be reminded of those strategies and how to utilize them. We are also taught how to use multimodal techniques to teach vocabulary and other lessons. So one of the most common is Freyr's model for vocabulary. So having the word in the middle, having them draw a picture of the word, having them write down synonyms, having them write down antonyms, and having them write down the definition so they can see it multiple times and utilize it multiple times. And lastly, we were taught about the testing that all the students have to go through in the CLD program. And this is how they get their NEP label, their LEP label, their FEP label, and what level they are 1 through 6. And we're taught about how that affects us with our evaluation. And what the kids have to go through. So they have to go through an English writing test, an oral listening test, an oral language test, a reading test, all determine their English fluency. So that's basically what we're taught. As you can see, we're not taught of any really services that are offered, especially we are not taught anything that's offered in the community for families. So I thought it was really important to research more. So the first person I talked to talk about services was the youth migrant advocate at my middle school, Franklin Middle School. She works at Franklin Middle School. She also works at Prairie Heights Middle School, and she works at Greeley West High School. So as you can see, she's spread out throughout the district in a few different schools. So she's not at Franklin Middle School every single day. But every week she does meet with the migrant students. She's required to meet with them at least once a month. So she'll pull them out of classes and she'll talk to the teacher before she does so. And they just work on different skills. So first I asked her what kind of services she offers and kind of what her job was, because I didn't even know we had a youth migrant worker until someone told me that I had a migrant student. And then I was made aware that I had quite a few migrant students. So I wanted to know more about what services were offered for them. So she offers tutoring. The students can meet up with them during lunch and during select classes to get tutoring. A lot of them will get tutoring on language skills. Also, a lot of them will go for math because the vocabulary in math is quite high. So she'll help with all of those different things. She provides uniforms and school supplies. A lot of migrant workers don't make a lot of money, and therefore their children, it's hard to provide for them. So she'll provide those materials for them so they can be successful in school. She provides weekly workshops that help students gain independency. So she'll bring them and she'll teach them how to do independent study skills, how to look up things in dictionaries, how to use the internet, just those basic kind of skills that we think are very basic, but they're more advanced for our migrant students and they haven't had experience with those things. She also does home visits once a semester, where she goes to the student's household and she meets the family and she talks to the family. She helps them with different things at home. And then all CLD classes are also available for migrant students in the school. So they can be in the pull-out English classes and the creative writing ones and the oral language class. Also, District 6 utilizes MEP, which is pictured on the right. And that kind of tells them what the entire program is and what it offers. And why the family should be involved, because the parents have to sign off in order to get the services. They have to sign a waiver form. And then there's also a lot of college scholarships for migrant students. In fact, one of the branches of CSU will give free tuition and free books for the first year for migrant students. And there's actually quite a few colleges that will do that in the state of Colorado so they can continue their education, which is really awesome. Also, as you can see on the side, the MEP is in English, and they also have those translated in different languages as well, so the family can read in their first language to make them a little bit more comfortable and so they actually know what's going on. I also inquired more about what exactly a home visit is. I had read about home visits before, and I saw that even some teachers do home visits, and so I was just kind of curious about what you do in a home visit. And I also saw that on the NEA, home visits create the relationship of parents and teachers as co-educators, so as people who work together to educate a student, who share respective knowledge about that student. It's about helping teachers become culturally aware and parents seriously involved in their child's education. I thought this was really well put, and therefore I wanted to ask Faith Jessup, who is our youth migrant worker, more about what she does with her home visits, and if she thinks it's really beneficial and whatnot. So she gave me some home visit advice. She said to learn the culture norms of the family. So not all cultures have furniture, and some cultures are less clean, and therefore we have to go in with a very open mind, and we have to be aware of their culture. She was saying that for some cultures, it's polite to take off your shoes, while for others it's not. So you really need to know those norms before you go in their home, so you don't disrespect the family in any way. You should also never do a home visit alone. That can put you in a very vulnerable situation. So you should always go with someone. You should be prepared to help the family with services such as filling out preschool forms, setting up cable. She said that she's called internet services to set up internet. She's done a variety of different things. So she could work as a translator and speak English, and she knows the culture norms here, so she could help them in the home set up different things and whatnot, and like trash services and all those kinds of things. She also said to always bring a translator if you don't speak the home language, and that there's translators available in the community and through the school district that will come with you. They speak both English and the language that you're trying to meet, and that's very helpful. And then she also provided me with a questionnaire, which is listed to the right. And this is kind of what she goes through when she goes to a home visit to get to know the family better. And she says it's very beneficial because it makes the family way more comfortable with the school. And we've read a lot about how it's really important to get parents comfortable with the school system here because many of them are not aware of the school system and therefore they don't want to become involved. They feel like as their language and their culture is a barrier between their child and their child's education. So she says that home visits really remove that barrier and help parents become more comfortable with the school system. Also, according to Faith Jessup, the youth migrant advocate, is the district uses Centennial BOCES to for all the migrant students. And a little bit about Centennial BOCES is their mission is through collaboration provide value-added resources that enrich educational opportunities for all students. So basically making education available for everyone, not just for affluent white children, but for all children, including migrants. So the district uses this program to track students. This program allows students to be tracked when they move from place to place. This allows students to stay on grade level and allows them to have all CLD and IEP services transferred appropriately. So when a student moves to a different school, which a lot of migrants move quite often, so when a migrant student moves to a different school, all their credits and the classes they have taken will be listed in this program. Along with their CLD and their IEP services that they had. So in the hopes that when they transfer to a different school, all those credits will transfer along with their services. Also, Centennial BOCES allows for the whole entire nation to see migrant workers. So if they move from state to state, it allows the different states to see what classes that they've taken and what services, it's not just Colorado that uses Centennial BOCES. The only downfall of this is when students move to a different country and then they come back and they don't have their paperwork, it's really hard to track them. Also, sending paperwork to another country, it doesn't always transfer appropriately. Not the same services are offered in other countries, all those things. So it can get really messy when students move back to Mexico for a few years and then come back to the United States because we're unaware of what education they did actually receive. As you can see pictured on the right is the referral form for the program. Basically, the purpose of this program is to help migrant students seize the opportunities they have and not be left behind because they're constantly repeating classes. So the last question that I asked Faith to answer for me is what services should be added for migrant workers, because I know that no system is perfect. So in asking her, she responded that she thinks that there should be more programs that teach independence amongst these families because a lot of times in a lot of different districts, not just District 6, they have the mentality that if we just give and give and give, all the problems will go away because they have everything. But in reality, it does create some issues in the fact that they expect you to give and give and give, and they don't expect them to become independent because if it's being handed to them, then why are they going to do something about it on their own? So she was saying that she really believes that there should be more programs that teach how to be independent, how to utilize your resources, how to use the internet, all of those different things, how to use a phone book so that they can become independent. She also said that the migrant program does not require the families to take a class before receiving the benefits of the program. So she believes that they should have to take a couple of the classes that teach independency and teach how to make your culture its own in the United States while being able to follow our cultural norms. They take those classes are offered, but it's not required to take them before receiving the services. So she thinks that those classes should be required to take before receiving services. I thought that was really interesting what she said, and this was also supported in Fenner's text when he states that, in short, educators' goal is for ELs and their family to be able to advocate for themselves. So we need to teach them that independency. How do I advocate for myself? And that's very important. And she's saying that we need to teach the migrant families how to advocate for themselves, and those classes should be required before services are completely given. My next inquiry was about refugee students at Franklin Middle School. We have two. So I was wondering what services were offered specifically to refugees, especially with what is going on right now in Syria. And it's possible that our refugee student amount can vastly increase if we start receiving more refugees. So I thought that was very interesting. I was told that there are no specific services available to solely refugees at Franklin Middle School. They're kind of just thrown in with the other English language students or sometimes migrants. There are services in general available, which are core replacement language arts, and then also oral English classes, which are part of the CLD program. And these are not available at all middle schools. They're very special to Franklin Middle School. Refugees can also apply for free and reduced price lunch. Although these forms aren't going to be expedited like it is for homeless students, which I thought was very interesting as well. And I found that I believe that there are a lot of refugee services are lacking from our middle school. Since I found that there weren't a lot of services offered for refugees at Franklin Middle School, I was wondering if there was more available at in the community level that applied more to refugee families instead of specifically the student. And what I found was that there is a newcomer program at the middle and high school levels, which is offered at Prairie Heights Middle School and Greeley West High School, which is in District 6. And this program basically is for students who have never been to school before. It teaches them very basic skills like how to hold a pencil, how to write with a pencil. It teaches them, of course, very basic language skills, how to read body language. It teaches them how to walk through the halls, how to use a locker, how to use a dictionary, a bunch of different resources that many of our students learn at a very young age, but students who have never been to school have never learned this. So that's a program that is used by many refugees, is this newcomer program. So also in the district, each refugee family and student is assigned a social worker that helps the family accumulate to the United States. Many of the social workers were refugees or migrant workers themselves, so they really understand what it's like to be thrown into a culture that's different from their own. And they can really sympathize with that, and then they can also share the basic struggles that we find common sense or we grew up with, so we don't realize it's a struggle. They can share those, and so that refugees families can avoid them ahead of time. There is issues with the social workers because they are given so many families at once. Sometimes they're not able to fully support the families, but it's still a great service that we have available. In the community, there's a nonprofit called the Global Refugee Center, and that's in Greeley. Their website is listed on the slide. I looked up the website, and their mission is, we work to establish sustained integration of all refugees and immigrants as self-sufficient, healthy, and inclusive members of society. So at the center, they teach a lot about the U.S. culture norms, how to incorporate your culture with the United States culture. They offer English classes that are completely free, and they offer citizenship classes. So if there's a family that aspires to become a United States citizen, what exactly they have to do. They also offer GED classes so they can have that high school diploma, because sometimes high school does not transfer from country to country, and some of these parents have not been educated as well. They also help coordinate translators They make sure that every family has a translator that speaks their language so they can be communicated clearly. They provide help with setting up appointments, transportation, driving classes, apartment rentals, grocery shopping, all of those little things that we don't really think twice about, but is a huge problem for refugee families when they first come, when they come with very little money and very little awareness of the United States culture. It just really helps them accumulate to the country, and it's a very helpful service for them. So lastly, I inquired about additional service offered. That's just services that are offered for all EL students and their families, not just refugee students and not just migrant students. So what I found was that there's free English classes for adults. As long as you're a parent of an EL student, you'll receive a free English class through the district. There's also free childcare at a few schools around the district, both daytime and evening, which is extremely helpful as well. So parents can work or become involved in the school system. So they are able to get that free daytime and evening care. As you can see on the side, I have a couple different pamphlets. There's a kids care clinic, which is free, and they, have Spanish as well. And they just do basic healthcare needs. If you don't have health insurance, then that's okay. They'll accept you anyway. But it's very, very, very easy, accessible childcare. Also, there's free community meals in Greeley, Colorado, and you could see a schedule of what times they offer them and where they offer them, which can be very helpful for parents who don't have a lot of money. Also, there are free counseling services that are offered that primarily assist with crisis situations, but also other situations as well. You could see that brochure to the right where it says crisis services. They also have pamphlets in other languages as well. There are translators employed by the district, which I discussed earlier. And then there's also discounted internet services, which is really helpful for parents who first move in or parents who don't have too much money, which you can see on the right as well, from Comcast. And as you can see from all these services offered, that a lot of them are for EL students and their families, but they're also available to really anyone in the community who's really struggling with their financial situation. So not only are they available for English language students and their families, but those are primarily the people who take advantage of these services. This is one page that I found of the community resources that are available for any struggling family financially and any English as a second language family who are usually very low income within the school system to take advantage of. Here's another page of those community resources. I was told that basically any English language family is provided with these community resources pages, and then any family who comes to the school about financial struggles also receive these papers as well. After I became made aware of the different services that are available for ELs, I asked the CLD teachers at my school what services they think should be added for EL students. So it was concisive that everyone believed that there should be more services available. They thought that there should be more teachers, so there could be smaller class sizes. They said ideal class size is about 5 students for English language learners, so they can be divided up by the level of fluency and then get more one-on-one attention. They also think that there should be more CLD classes offered, so more students can stay in the program longer, and also so those classes can be divided by levels. However, this is very ideal, and they all stated that finances is definitely the issue to this. I asked them about, what financial benefits do we get or what finances do we get for having EL students, and they said ELs receive extra funding for 2 years that help pay for CLD teachers, but most ELs receive services way longer than that. So most of them stay in the system for more than 2 years. However, we are only financed that they are staying in the system for solely 2 years, even though that's highly unrealistic. Another thing that they said was an issue with the programs that we have enabled is that there are federal programs to help migrant and homeless students, but many of our refugee students don't technically qualify for these programs, so there's very little official assistance we can get for them. So their assistance mostly comes from outside of the district in the public sector, where we should really have a lot of services and support available for our refugee students in the schools. As you could see with Franklin Middle School, we had no services specific to refugee students, and this is very problematic. In addition to more services that should be offered, it's very known that research shows that the most effective way for a second language student to develop both academic concepts and English language proficiency is through the full development of their first language. However, in the district and at Franklin Middle School, we do not offer classes in students' first languages, which can be very problematic. We offer very, very beginning level Spanish classes, but for somebody who speaks Spanish fluently, those are not beneficial for them. So offering more advanced language classes would be very beneficial and would help them learn their first language. So the problem with that is that we would have to find an educator for each language within the school system. We have many Asian languages, tribal languages, etc., which could be very, very expensive and sometimes not the most productive situation. So also, it's shown that when a student uses their first language, it helps them comprehend their second language, and supporting a student's first language also supports their identity. And these are all very important factors in a student learning their second language. And I think that those should be considered a lot more in our district and in our school system. So lastly, it brings me to what I learned after doing this project and what should be done next. So through this process, I was shocked that I was unaware of so many services that are offered in my own school, within the district, and in the community. I knew nothing about the services offered in the community, very little about the services in the district, and I knew more about the services in the middle school that I work in, but even that I didn't know of all the services offered, especially for migrant students, and it was quite shocking for me. So with that conclusion, I learned that teachers need to be aware of these services. Our job is to properly advocate for our students, and as you could see, many of my students receive different language classes, and it's hard for me to be an advocate for them when I don't know the services that are available. So I think that teachers need to be taught these things. I also learned that although these services that we do offer are really great, more services need to be added. We don't offer enough CLD classes, and we don't have enough CLD teachers to fulfill our need. We have such a high EL population within this district, and all those students are not being properly served. So with that, we need more money to go into CLD programs and additional services. And the only way that I can really think that we can get this done is through tax money, which means that we need to make this issue aware to our public, and we need to teach the public what needs to be done so they can make proper and educated decisions on their voting, so we can make a push towards English as a second language, and services for refugees, migrants, and other EL students.